information I'm going to give you tonight is based on the state's guidelines for applying for financial aid, and step by step, and it's very comprehensive. So we're going to break it down to a few different sections, basically what financial aid is, how it works, the FAFSA itself, the different types of applications, and then what you can expect from your Southern Delaware College financial aid office. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen now so we can go into, host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you enable me, please? And this way we'll go into the presentation. If you have questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and I'll get to them as I see them if I can, or we'll try and leave some time at the end for some questions. Being in this medium, though, I would suggest that you don't make it too personal. Just keep them general, and then we can go through the questions. All right, let's try this again. Here we go. Okay, so you should see my presentation, so we're going to go ahead and get started with it. Here we go. Okay, so we're looking at the financial aid presentation for the 2021-2022 financial aid year. And the one thing to remember with that is that when we're doing financial aid and we're talking about the FAFSA, we're always looking 2 years back. So for this session for 21-22, we're going to be looking at the 2019 tax information. So it's important to note that if your information has changed, that you can contact the Office of Financial Aid, and they will gladly help you get the correct information on there. But first, a little bit about HESA. HESA is the acronym for New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. It's the state agency that is authorized to provide financial aid funds and information to families to help fund their higher education goals. Going into what the goals of the financial aid office, we have a lot of goals. But to me, the most important one that we go through is the final goal, which is the implement of federal and state regulations. There is a lot of guidelines and a lot of rules that we have to follow. And one thing a lot of students don't realize is that if they do something academically, it does impact their eligibility for financial aid. Withdrawing from classes, failing classes, stopping attending your classes, that does impact your financial aid eligibility. Going into the different types of financial aid, there's the sources and then the types. Okay, so the sources of aid are federal, state, college, and then the outside the box, the outside organizations that a lot of people don't really think of or remember. And the biggest one to me would be going back to your high school. A lot of high schools have donors or endowments that they have that they can offer scholarships to. And a lot of people don't realize that they can go and try and get those funds. So it's important to keep that in mind as they get closer to the end of your senior year. The different types of financial aid, there's grants, there's scholarships, loans, and then there's employment. The way I remember it is grants is what everybody wants. It's free money, money you don't pay back. Scholarships, again, free money, you don't pay it back, but you have to work to get it. You had to have done academics, a sport, something. You had to do some kind of activity to get them. Loans are what nobody wants, but everybody gets. The Department of Education automatically gives students a loan. As soon as you submit your FAFSA, you're actually going to get pre-qualified for a student loan. And then there's employment opportunities. Employment opportunities, I always suggest that people kind of wait out to see how they feel during their freshman year. Can you take on transitioning to college in addition to working a part-time job? So another tip that we recommend students look for is their net price calculator. And this is a requirement that schools must have on their website. And it's a way to find out what school will cost before you apply. So if you're looking to see what the difference between Rutgers and Rowan is, or Salem County and Rowan College, South Jersey, you can go on their websites and put in some basic information, and you'll get an idea what kind of financial aid you'll be eligible for. And you do that before you even apply for admissions. So you'll know right away, can I afford this school? So it's a really good tool, and it's really important that you try and check out those, especially if you're looking at some higher cost schools. The types of financial aid we're going to go through, we're going to break down the different types, which are federal, your state, and your institutional. The federal, the largest one is the Pell Grant. That's nationwide. That amount, the $63.45, that is at the highest level, and it's the same at every college you go to. So whether it's Salem County, whether it's Harvard, it's the same amount you go to. The SCOG, that's a little different. Again, it can go to any school, but that's usually a first come, first serve grant, and there is a limit. Each school does give a different amount. My school, for example, gives $1,000 a year. Other schools will give 800, 500, 400. It's up to the school's discretion on how they want to spend it. The Teach Grant is another grant, but that is more for education majors to help them get the training needed to become a teacher. There are some strings attached to it. There are some postgraduate work requirements that you need to meet. If not, it will turn into a loan. So, it starts off as a grant, but then modifies into a loan if you don't meet those requirements. Going into the state of New Jersey, for all high taxes that we have, we do offer some very nice financial aid programs based on those. New Jersey TAG is our largest grant that we offer. There is some eligibility requirements. The biggest thing to do, just remember, is to file your FAFSA by the state deadlines. And there are some different deadlines based on the program you're in. But what I tell everybody is just remember, the FAFSA opens on October 1. If you do it as close to October 1 as you can, you're going to meet every deadline. So just keep October 1st in mind and you'll be okay. For those that may not be a citizen, they may be a dreamer or a DACA student, New Jersey state grants can be offered to you. You just have to do the alternative application, which is available on the HESA website. There are two types of TAG awards. One is full-time TAG, which goes to any college in New Jersey. And then there's part-time TAG, which is for community colleges for students who are not going to pursue a full-time course of study. The EOF fund. The EOF fund is a specific type of award for students who have an educational and economic disadvantaged background. You have to file your FAFSA or New Jersey alternative application. And it does have a grant component to it. However, this program has more than just a grant. It's an advising program. It's a mentoring program. They have other non-financial incentives for you to join this program. And it does help students actually become a better scholar while they're in it. The Governor's Urban Scholarship, this is for the high flyers, top 5% of their class, and go to a New Jersey college or university. New Jersey Stars, this is one of the more recent grants that came around in the past 10 or so years. It does have a graduation requirement. You have to be in the top 15% at the end of your junior or senior year. So it's important to remember, if you're at the end of your junior year and you're at 15.01%, you're not disqualified. You can move up in your senior year. Now, if you're in your senior year and you're sitting at 14.9% and then you slip, that's okay, because at the end of your junior year, you were in top 15. We will work with the guidance counselors to help get that all documented. New Jersey Stars 2, that is a continuation of New Jersey Stars for four-year schools. One thing to keep in mind is that to qualify, you do have to earn your associate's degree. You can't just roll right to a four-year school from high school and activate New Jersey Stars 2. The state requires that you have the 3.25 GPA and an associate's degree. There are some rare cases where students earn their associate's degree prior to graduating from high school. Those students are eligible to go straight to New Jersey Stars 2 because they already have their associate's degree. The New Jersey Gives Scholarship, this is for minorities and women that are going to the 19 community colleges. So they're pursuing programs that are not your typical college programs. You're not going for psychology or criminal justice or liberal arts. You're actually going for a vocational or a technical program. The goal of this program is to give you funding to get a credential to allow you to join the workforce right away. So it's not your typical financial aid program. CCOG, this is our newest one. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still confused on how CCOG works. All the rules are changing left and right, but the basics are that it does cover tuition and approved fees. There are some situations where you may still have to pay based on the fees that you owe. You do have to be attending your county college of residence. Unless their program is not offered, then you can do a chargeback and be covered in county. If their program is not offered, say you want to go to RCSJ and your home county is Salem, you can still do that, but you may owe the difference in what CCOG will cover and what your home county charges are. you do have to maintain academic progress and also complete the FAFSA or New Jersey alternative application. So now we go into some student loans. Again, as I mentioned when I first started talking, that the government is automatically going to qualify you for a student loan based on your FAFSA. Those loans are either going to be subsidized or unsubsidized. There are caps on how much you can get of both, but every student basically gets a $5,500 loan. And up to 35 can be subsidized and 2,000 can be unsubsidized. The difference is the interest. On the subsidized loan, the interest is deferred while the student is in school. In the unsubsidized loan, the interest will accrue while the student is in school. A lot of people will want the subsidized. Unfortunately, they can't control which one they get. The EFC, which we'll get into later, will dictate what kind of loan they're going to be eligible to receive. The New Jersey class loan is an alternative loan that requires a secondary application. If you're going to a school with a higher cost and your Pell Grants and your student loan, federal loans aren't enough, those schools will talk to you about borrowing what they call alternative loans. And these are non-federal loans. It's basically the equivalent of going to your bank and getting a personal loan, but it's used for education. New Jersey class is one of the better loan products out there. One of the requirements is that you have to be a New Jersey resident, but you can take it to any school in the nation. You do not have to stay in New Jersey like you do for the grant programs. With New Jersey class, you can go to University of Alaska if you choose to. There is interest that is assigned to these that are a little higher than the federal rates. But what I think is the most important to know about this is this origination fee that you see in the center of the screen. I did not mean to do that, sorry. When the loans are given, if you need like a $1,000 loan, New Jersey class is going to take 3% off the top just for doing business with you. So you're not going to get your full $1,000 that you need. So you just need to do the math and figure out how much to borrow minus that 3% fee, so that way you can walk away with a zero balance to your school. Some institutional private scholarships, there's some items that will impact your eligibility. Everybody knows about athletic scholarships for D1, D2. You have class rank for New Jersey Stars, your high school that you went to. I can give you an example. At my school, we have a scholarship for a Del C high school graduate. So there could be something like that at the schools that you're looking at. They may have some kind of partnership with your high school. So you should check into that as well. The different types of applications. So there's three, right? There is the FAFSA, which is at the top. There's the CSS Profile in the center, and then there's the alternative application for HESA at the bottom. The most important one you do, no matter what, is the FAFSA. It's free. It does not cost you anything to do it. It takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes to do it if you create your username and password in advance and you link from the IRS. The CSS Profile is not required at every school. So unless your school requires it, don't do it, because it has a cost associated with it. I believe it's like $80 or $75 to submit the application, and then they charge you to add additional schools to it. And then the HESA application, the alternative app for New Jersey Dreamers, there's no cost to that. However, it's a second step. You know, us at the college level, we don't know who is DACA and who is Dreamer. Your high school guidance counselor may know, they may not know, but the student does know. So they just need to know where to get this information, and it's done online. It mirrors the FAFSA, and the New Jersey State will process the application. It will not go to the federal government for processing. The CSS Profile, as I mentioned, there's only a few schools around the nation that require it. There's about 400. It does use the FAFSA's prior year information, which is, again, 2 years ago. But if you notice, the second to last step is make a payment. So the CSS Profile does cost you money to process, so make sure you check with your college that they definitely want this product. A lot of schools who have high endowments, you know, your Harvard, your Yales, those kind of schools may require it because they want to make sure that there's no income that's not reported on the FAFSA that can influence how much money they're going to give you out of their own accounts. Here's some information. I'm going to have these slides made available to Ms. Cloud, so she has all these contacts for you. So that way, if you do need to follow them, you can have the direct links. Okay, the FAFSA, the whole reason why we're here tonight. It does become available October 1. So like in a week or so, you can start applying for financial aid for next year, a whole year ahead of time. It is mobile friendly. There is also an app that's available. I think it's My FAFSA or something like that you can download, so you can do everything through an app. The IRS data retrieval tool, you're going to hear me mention that phrase a lot coming up because it's very important that if you're eligible to use that, that you do. It's going to simplify the FAFSA for you. It's going to import all the tax information that you need accurately and correctly from the IRS directly. So that way it'll reduce the likelihood that you will have to provide additional information to the financial aid department. If you choose to not use the IRS data retrieval tool, which you can opt out of it. There are reminders throughout the FAFSA on what tax year to use, so that way you know you're working with the correct FAFSA. As you can see in the blue box, it says 2019 tax return. So submitting the FAFSA, when do you do it? That's a lot of questions we get. And again, October 1, if you can do it October 1, do it October 1. That's the easiest way to remember to do it. Just right before Halloween, do your FAFSA. You do have to check with your school's deadlines. The last time I did a search was a year or two ago, and I believe Penn State main campus had the earliest deadline of November in our area. So you have some time, but again, I strongly recommend you do it in October. It doesn't guarantee you to get more money if you do it any earlier. The money is the money, it's guaranteed. It doesn't really matter, except for when it comes to institutional funds. Those you want to do as early as possible because they do run out. So the FAFSA is done online. You do have to submit the FAFSA electronically. Their website, studentaid.gov, will guide you through all the steps of getting a username and password and also directing you straight to the FAFSA application. The studentaid.gov website is actually the hub for everything you'll need to do for financial aid. If you do have to borrow a student loan, that's where you'll go to complete the necessary steps to obtain the loan. You get your username and password. It links you everywhere you need to be. What's important to note is that the username and password, the FSA ID we call it, it does have to be obtained by the student and at least one parent. Okay, so you know, a lot of times parents will be doing these, come to these events and they'll take all the information and they're just going to go do it themselves, and that's fine. I don't have an argument with that. However, if you're going to create your son or daughter's username and password, write it down, because this is the password they're going to use for the rest of their lives. It ties to their date of birth, it ties to their social and their name. So when they're married with kids going to college, the government's going to say, you already have a username and password. And if they never get to know it, they're going to have a hard time resetting it. So what I recommend parents do is create 2 separate email addresses, you know, like mystudents@gmail.com and parent@gmail.com, and only use those for financial aid. That way you can give your son, daughter access to it, you have access to it, and you can stay on top of information that's being transmitted back and forth. But this way, again, the username and password, make sure your son or daughter uses it. Make sure they do not use their high school email address when they create it, because those get purged. Usually 6 months from graduation, they're purged out and they won't be able to reset their passwords. The data retrieval tool is, again, as I said, I'm going to say this a lot because if you use this, it just makes everything so much easier. It's available October 1. There's only a few situations in which you cannot use it, and that's if you married filing separately, if you filed a foreign tax return, or if you amended your tax return. They can't do that. They can't bring the changes in, and they can't combine the incomes. But I would say about 90% of the population are able to use the data retrieval tool, and it goes through with no problem. The FSA ID, as I already mentioned, is the username and password to sign the FAFSA. It also is the username and password that will be used to sign all federal documents, such as your student loan promissory notes and your entrance counselings. Again, make sure that parents have their own, students have their own. If you can, sync the mobile phone to it, so that way you can just do the text resets if you ever need to do that. It'll just set into a 6-digit code. You get it in a text, you type it in, you can reset your password immediately. If you don't use that and you do have to reset your password, there's typically a 3-day delay before you can actually reactivate it. So again, just using the mobile process works a lot more efficient. So some basics of the financial aid and some eligibility. You have to have a valid social. A work authorization social security number is not a valid social to do the FAFSA. So you know, that would put you in the realm for the DREAMer application instead of the federal. You do have to be enrolled in a program of study to get financial aid. So just make sure you don't go as undeclared or non-matriculated. Pick liberal arts if you're not sure what you want to do, and that way you can change that major later. You have to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen. And then the biggest one that we see, because the FAFSA is done so early, is selective service. All males are still required to register with selective service between the ages of 18 and 26. Normally students are 17 when they're doing it, so they don't know to do it, or they're like, well, I'm not old enough to do it. On the FAFSA, there's going to be a question that says, are you a male? And it looks at when you were born, what you were legally born as, not what you identify with now. So you would answer yes if you're a male. The next question is going to say, have you registered with Selective Service? You're going to say no, because you haven't. Then it's going to be a pop-up saying, do you want us to do it for you? Just say yes. What they'll do is, if you're not 18 yet, it'll put your name in a queue, and then it'll register you automatically. So you won't have to worry about going back and doing it. It'll automatically do it for you. Again, some more components of the FAFSA, but there's also mistakes that are made. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the parents are getting username and password. So when they go into the FAFSA, they put themselves as a student, and they end up completing the FAFSA for themselves and not their son or daughter. So just make sure that you are aware of what information you're putting in where. Make sure you remember your date of birth. Be surprised how many students don't remember their date of birth. Social security number you can understand, right? A 17, 18-year-old, they may not know it, but date of birth is kind of confusing when they don't get that. The gender question, again, identifies what you're legally born as, not what you identify with now. Again, use the data retrieval tool. And then the parent. The parent gets tricky, especially with the different ways homes are made up nowadays. The standard two parents, mom, dad, they're easy, no-brainers. When parents are separated, we look at custodial parent. When there's a divorce, we look at custodial parent. If there's a remarry, we look at custodial parent and the step parent's income. All those get factored together. So again, data retrieval, please use that as a parent. The federal means benefits, they don't want to know the amounts of these. They're just check boxes. If you get one, you only need to answer one. The same effect will be as if you answered all of them. So if you get SSI, but you're not sure if you're getting free or reduced lunch, just check the one. It doesn't matter. It'd be okay. When you submit the FAFSA, a lot of students will have younger brother or sister or an older brother or sister that also is completing the FAFSA. So you can actually link all the parental data right from here to the next student. So as long as you have their username and password, you hit the little arrow on the right and it'll take you and tell you to put that in. Once you pull it in, it'll pull up their FAFSA. All the parental data, including the data retrieval, will be pulled in for that parent information. So then you're only updating the other siblings' information, and it kind of speeds up the process. There's also the link over here to complete your state application. As long as you indicate that you're New Jersey, you'll get triggered to do that. The state does ask some additional questions, usually in about 3 to 5 days, or 3 to 5 questions are asked. If you don't remember to hit this button, it's okay. In 3 to 5 days, you can log into the New Jersey FAMS website and update those questions for you on your own. It's important that you do that though, because the state has some strict deadlines, as I mentioned. And usually if you don't reply to the request for information within, say, 30 days, they're going to move on to the next qualified student. And you don't want to miss out on free money just because you didn't read an email or you forgot to upload a document. So it's really important. And if you do that trick where I mentioned creating a unique email address, mom or dad can stay involved and make sure those deadlines are met. Some mistakes on the FAFSA, I kind of already went through how to identify yourself. Divorce and remarried households, just make sure that if there is a remarried, they get combined. If not, use custodial. The 0, that's really important because the government will make assumptions. If you don't put a number in there, they assume worst case scenario. So if there's one of the examples would be business income. If you have a business, but there's no value to it, put a 0. That's okay. If there's under 150 employees, then you can just report whatever value it is because they're not going to question it with under 150 people. And then finally, as I mentioned, the gender question. You do have to answer that because it triggers a selective service. The verification process is extremely frustrating for some students because they feel they don't understand why they have to submit additional information. The school is responsible for verifying federal aid eligibility. So the government selects at random certain students to be verified. It doesn't mean anything was done wrong. It doesn't mean anything needs to be changed. It's just their quality control so that they can make sure the dollars are going to the right student. If you use the data retrieval tool, it does reduce the likelihood of you being selected, but doesn't prevent it. In addition to the school doing federal verification, HESA themselves do their own verification and they don't always select the same student. So while you may go through with federal aid with no problem, HESA could be emailing you trying to get information from you. It's very important that you make sure you meet those deadlines. The alternative application, I kind of touched base on this, and this is for our Dreamers and DACA students. You do complete a pseudo FAFSA on the state's website. Males still have to register with Selective Service, but then the next step is that you have to file an affidavit that states as soon as you can, when it becomes legal to do so, you will then update your immigration status or file the application to become a legal immigrant. It's just an affidavit. We all have basically a cookie cutter one that the student comes in and signs on, and then we just put it in a file and it sits there until we have the need to send it to the state. New Jersey fans, this is New Jersey tax dollars at work. They finally decide to buy some modern technology, and it's very nice. It's very informative. There is the login information. Usually you'll get an email telling you to go create an account. As long as you do that, you go to New Jersey fans, and then you can update all your information. Another nice tool that New Jersey uses, and a lot of community colleges are using now, is called Mapping Express. And that allows you to take a picture of any document we're asking for, a driver's license, your tax returns, anything. You digitize it, and then you can upload it through a secure mailbox, and it goes directly to the school or to HESA. It's encrypted, and it speeds things up because students can literally do it from their phone. They don't have to worry about scanning, linking, signing. It all gets done rather smoothly. When you go through New Jersey FAMS, the goal is to get all green check boxes on your account. This means you've done everything they asked for, but there's some information. If you see in red, they don't have it. If you see in green, they do have it, and you'll be good to go. So now let's get into what the financial aid office does with your information. You just took all this time to file a FAFSA. It's important to know what we're going to do with it, so that way you know how to ask the right questions to try and get additional aid or find additional resources for you. What we do is we develop a cost of attendance for every student, and it's a broad amount. It's not going to be specific to the student. It's going to compose tuition and fees, room and board, books, loan fees, all these extra expenses that we can think of what the cost of the school would be. So when you hear like Drexel University costs $64,000 to go to, that's not just tuition and fees. That's all these costs together, okay? There's additional costs that aren't factored in. If you have remediation or you change your major, you have to take additional classes. That's adding time, and time is money in the case of financial aid. So there's things you want to account for if you're not sure what you want to do when you go to college. The EFC, as I mentioned, I kept saying this little acronym, is the expected family contribution. Now, this is not an exact dollar. So if you get your EFC and it comes back at $5,000, the school doesn't expect you to pay $5,000. It's basically a score that allows us at the college to see what kind of information you're going to need. So you can see the last bullet stresses, it's not the equivalent of your out-of-pocket expense, okay? So a sample of the EFC and how it works is, you have the Smith family, 4 in a household, decent income of 120 grand. Their EFC is 20,000. So again, the government's saying you have 120,000 plus 20, so 140,000 in assets and income. That means that your EFC is worth 20,000. So how does that work? Well, we look at the cost of attendance, all those things we talked about, tuition, fees, room and board. Then we subtract off the EFC, and that allows us to determine what your financial need is. How much money do you need, and how much free money can we give you? So the community college in the Smith family example, they're not going to get any grant money. They're going to get an unsubsidized student loan. They may get New Jersey Stars. They may get some additional scholarships from the institution or from the college, but they're not going to get Pell or TAG. At a public state college or university, the EFC is reducing the cost down to where there's a small amount left. Still not going to qualify for Pell or TAG, but you'll get more additional funds. It'll qualify you for subsidized funding, some more of the institutional assistance. And then at a private college or university, you can see they have more financial need because they cost more. So this is where they'll do some tuition discounting. They'll give you some institutional scholarships. And again, the subsidized loan would be available for you. So we're going through the cycles of financial aid. Where do we start? Well, we're about to ramp it up for next year. October 1, you're going to do your FAFSA as close to October 1 as you can. February through May, you start getting your award letters. And then finally in June and July, your fall bills are due. What's funny is there was a school about 2 years ago that actually their seniors received their tuition statement from their colleges before they graduated because they were delayed with school closings or something. So it was interesting, they had to pay for college prior to graduation. So just think, Mom, Dad, 9 months, it's coming fast. So the first thing to do is do that FAFSA and get prepared for it. So where do we go from here? Start getting your financial aid information together. You can get your username and password now. They won't expire, they're good for life. So if you want to do something tonight, you want to take action right away, that'd be the one thing I would say to do. Create the username and passwords for the FAFSA. That way, October 1, you can jump in and use the IRS data retrieval tool. You can submit the FAFSA, and again, should be done in 15 minutes. Other areas that you can look for as your end of your senior year starts to come upon you, outside scholarships. There's thousands of scholarships available. There's hundreds of databases to search for. The one thing that I stress to everyone is never pay for a scholarship. Don't ever have to do a $5 application fee to try and get a scholarship. There's no sense in paying for free money. They should be given to you based on your academics or your athletic abilities or other eligibility requirements. So if anything ever asks for a credit card, just close out the browser, walk away. It's not worth it to give them all that information and not guarantee you anything. There are some apps that you can download to your phone that do the same thing, but generally they cost like $1.99. Again, if you don't want to pay for anything, you just pull up the dashboard site on your phone and it wouldn't cost you anything. Some other opportunities, if you're looking at going to a college that has housing, if you become an RA or an ambassador, a lot of them will give you some kind of discount. Maybe they'll give you a discount on your housing or a discount on your meal plan to get you into those positions. So it may be something if you're interested in saving some money to look and see if those opportunities are available. Private scholarships, as I already mentioned, check your high school, check your college's websites. If you go to a library and look at a book, you're looking at outdated information. It's changing too fast. Just jump on Google, go to scholarships.com, FastWeb, College Board. All these different sites have opportunities for you. But the one thing a lot of parents forget about is your employer. Sorry. A lot of times parents will have embedded in their contracts that they are able to get assistance for academic performance from their kids. So check with your HR department to see if you have that. If your kids can pull a 3.0 GPA, you may get some of that tuition reimbursement back and help offset the cost that you put out of pocket. The New Jersey Best Plan, usually when I get to this slide, I look around the room and I see that a lot of parents have kids in high school and it's kind of late to get full maximum value of this. However, if you know anyone at home who has a young child and wants to put money away, the 529 plan's around. It does have a scholarship that ties to it based on the amount of money and time you have invested. And it is tax-free when you make your deductions. Some additional sites that HESA offers, kind of went over everything. There's the customer care line. These will also, like I said, be given to Ms. Cloud. She can make them available for you on the website so you have direct access to them. And now we can do some questions. I'm actually going to try and get out of here and bring back open, stop sharing. Okay, so you should just see me now, right? Hopefully. Good. All right, so we can do some questions if you want. You can put them in the chat if you feel comfortable and it's vague enough. If not, Ms. Cloud has my contact information if you want to email me questions. It may be, some time till I get back to you, but I will generally get back to you in a few days. Is there anything in the chat? No, I don't see anything in the chat yet.
Yeah, so if there's any general questions, again, I think Mr. Chando said not to get super specific. We can answer them now. You can unmute yourself. I don't see anything in the chat. Wait a minute.
I got one. Okay, so the question was what site to go to create the login information, and that is directly on FSAID.gov or studentaid.gov can link you to the correct website as well. Again, that studentaid.gov website is the main hub. It links everywhere. So if you have to remember the one, that's the most important one to remember.
And I will post the slides with the contact information and the website onto the Google Classroom probably tonight or tomorrow.
want to, you know, if a student was working 2019, would they have to fill out their income? So the question that was asked is, if a student works in 2019, do they have to report their income? Yes. They may not have filed taxes because they may not made enough money to legally require to file, but they still report working wages on the FAFSA. Okay, so military, yes, there is a whole a bunch of different programs that veterans can use. If you're the dependent of a veteran, you would check with the college's Veterans Affairs Department. Every college has one. That way they can help you use the correct chapter. I believe it's chapter 34 or chapter 35 benefits, where a parent can pass the benefits on to a child if they were not already used.
So if you don't have a specific question, that's the presentation. You're free to go. If you do want to stick around and write a question in the chat, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes until all the questions are answered.
If you do have something specific, you can change the chat to send it directly to me, I believe, if I'm in here. I may not be in here. Yeah, maybe because I'm outside. But if not, I'm going to post my information so you have it. And I'm getting Zoom bombed already. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Hi, Gavin.
Say hi. Can you wave to everybody? No. Sorry. All right, so I'm going to put my email address in here. That way you can reach me if you need to. He's been escorted out. Okay. So yeah, if you have any additional questions, my email address is in the chat. Feel free to contact me. Like I said, just give me a day or two to reply back. It is my work email address, and sometimes they go to my spam folder if they don't come from inside the college. I try and go through them at the end of every day and reply back to anyone who emails me from these events.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me out tonight. I do